Hey guys, this is Lee with Untapped Potential. It's Sunday night, which means it's time to do another Magic the Gathering Online Magic Origins Booster Draft. Waiting on one more person to join us here before we get started tonight. Once again, for anyone just joining us for the first time, this is a booster draft where we open a booster pack, we take a card, we pass the pack, what's left of the pack to the next player, we get what the next pack passed to us, take another card. We build a 40-card deck using the cards we pull out of those booster packs, and then we're going to play a three-round Swiss event and try to win as many games as possible to try to get as big a prize as possible. And here we go. Should probably put my headphones in here real quick. Well, look who is in our first pack. It is Jace, Vryn's Prodigy. Let me pull the preview window in here so y'all can see. It's a dual-sided Planeswalker card, and worth a lot of money. So, let's take a look and see what else we have here, though. Jace is a strong contender. Throwing Knife, as we've seen in previous weeks, is a really cheeky equipment artifact. Very powerful. Stalwart Aven and the Renowned creatures are always good. Erois' Champion is just an absolute beast. If you are drafting the red-white deck, there is no reason you don't want this. Goldforge Sentinel has virtue of having good stats for its cost, as well as flying. It can go in essentially any deck because of it not being color-dependent. Unholy Hunger is also really good, as is Grasp of the Harrowmancer. This is actually a really strong pack overall, but the mercenary in me is just going to go ahead and take Jace, hope to try to do something with him, and if for no other reason, just because, hey, it's Jace! It's the first Mythic I've pulled online in this set, so that's exciting. May not be the best decision we make all day, though, but there's still a good start of a deck here. So, now we have some decisions to make. We're going into Pack 2 now. We could take a different color card, or we could just take another blue card. Elvish Visionary is real strong. Blue-green is a deck type that can totally do some work. When this enters the battlefield, you draw a card. Dwynen's Elite is good, but it kind of wants to be more in a green-black deck to capitalize on as much of the elf synergy as possible. But at its worst, it's still a 2 for a 2/2, which is usually the good exchange rate. Watercourser is a very solid blue card, probably the second best common, I think. And Scrapskin Drake, the flyer, is also very good for his stats. I think I'm going to pick up the Elvish Visionary here, though. Draw power's good, and it's still early enough that if we don't end up going into green, well, no harm done, nothing lost. So in this pack, we have a few other really great things. Separatist Void Mage in blue is a great tempo play, and it's a good way to get a creature and return one of theirs to their hand. Suppression Bonds, if we decide to go into white, is premium removal. It's really good for keeping things down. We also have Shadows of the Past, which I have seen this card used, and it can be gross. It also has the extra bonus ability of playing well with our Jace that we picked up, because the more creatures that get into our graveyard, the sooner we can start using this. Anchor to the Aether is also pretty good, in that it puts the creature on top of their library and slows them down for a turn. You know what, we're just going to do a fun draft tonight, so we're going to go ahead and grab that Shadows of the Past, we're going to prioritize removal, and we're just going to see what we can do with it. Disperse is pretty decent removal here. I could definitely see us playing that. So far, this pack is missing 2 of its uncommons and 1 of its commons, I assume. Tainted Remedy, there's really no way to force your opponent to gain life, so this is a huge nombo. And even if unless they have like 4 Cleric or the Forward Order, there's just no reason to be running this, so we're not going to take it either. And the colors we're in, which could be green, could be blue, could be black. Orchard Spirit's an okay beater. It's difficult to block. Send to Sleep is good if you have the spell mastery and more of a tempo thing, but you can't guarantee it. I'm just going to take Disperse, and that we can use it to bounce anything they try to combat trick, and again, just tempo. So once again, here's another Separatist Void Mage, which we didn't take the first time, which is good. There's also Shambling Ghoul, who as far as black creatures go, is one of the better black common creatures, especially at the low end of the mana curve. And Dreadbridge Shaman is also very solid, though it can disrupt their hand. We're going to grab the Void Mage. For those of you wondering what that sound is, my cat is currently climbing up my back and meowing into the microphone. Everybody say hello to Paloma. Paloma, say hi to everybody else. Now you get quiet. Okay, so I have a cat. I have 2 of them, in fact. Paloma and Penny. Penny is quiet. I don't think she's ever said 2 words in her life, so she's not going to meow through our video. If Paloma becomes too obnoxious, I will pause my recording and go lock her in the bathroom or something. Hopefully that won't be the case. So we're waiting on somebody else to make a pick here, and we now get a few options. We could grab Negate, which is something that generally you'll probably want at least, you can get away with one of in a deck, and this one is foil, which is very nice. Let's see, Knight of the Pilgrim's Road, Celestial Flare. All our colors still seem to be pretty open. That's the cat jumping onto the desk next to me now. Hi again. And Despoiler of Souls, which we can use to exile creatures from our grave to return him from our graveyard to the battlefield, which is kind of a non-bow with everything else we're trying to do so far. So I think we're just gonna... Actually, let's pick him up, though. Or do I want to... What do I want to do here? I think it's more of just a load the graveyard up deck, and we'll do that. Displacement Wave. What is it with the rares getting passed in this pack? Goodness. That we can use to return everything to our hand. Once again, a big tempo play, but it doesn't really do a lot. Revenant. Well, once again, it likes having creatures in the grave, which makes it totally unplayable next to Despoiler of Souls. Meteorite both does damage and works as a mana rock, and which actually I think it's probably the best thing left in this pack. Dreadwaters, no. I mean, Grasp of the Harrowmancer is great, but I'm not sure it's worth going into another color for. And we didn't grab that last Negate, but we might see another Negate. I'm going to pick up Meteorite. So, we have a foil Vryn Wingmare here, which is a 3 for a 2/1 flying that can make our opponent's non-creatures cost more to cast. It's interesting. Here's the Undead Servants, which if we start loading up on these now and hopefully get at least 3 of them, that's a deck, especially with all the self-mill we're doing here. Again, it's a gamble. Hopefully it'll pay off. We're going to grab it. Alright, so we're back to our first pack here, and the Goldforged Sentinel is still in the pack, as is Touch of Moonglove, Maritime Guard, and Guardian Automaton. I think the answer here is pretty straightforward. This is just a good solid beater that is not going to tax our mana base. We're going to pick him up. In this pack, I think the Infernal Scarring is not that great. Clash of Wills is certainly playable. This is good if you're in those colors, but we're really not at this point. I'm just going to go ahead and, when in doubt, take the creature and get this one. And as far as creatures go, it's pretty solid. In this pack, we can get the Ugly Catacomb Slug, or we can pick up the Rabid Bloodsucker. Well, they cost the same. This one has flying and more power, but it dies to a light breeze, whereas this one just sits there clogging up the ground. I'm going to take the Bloodsucker. Because I really don't see us running either of those, but if I had to pick one or the other, I guess I'd go with the Bloodsucker. Night Snare is, if it cost less mana, would be excellent. We could use it to interrupt our opponent's hand. Tainted Remedy, though, doesn't do anything, and Brawler's Plate is just too expensive, so Night Snare it is. With the caveat of, I'm probably not playing it. I'm also not completely sold on Mage Ring Network here, but at the same time, I like it better than anything else in the pack. We'll pick it up. Again, we probably won't use it. Finally, Artificer's Epiphany. If we get a bunch of artifacts later, maybe, but for right now, I don't see that making the cut. Let's go ahead and sort by converted mana cost again. I'm going to go ahead and cut Elvish Visionary. Well, we're not in the Elf deck, but we just got another amazing rare, although this uncommon also I've seen do huge work, but we're not in green, or are we? Claustrophobia is also in this pack, and it's really good as basically removal. Once it gets tapped down, it's probably not untapping. But I'm sorry, there's no way I'm taking that over this, which is a difficult-to-block menace creature who's very likely to destroy a creature when she enters the battlefield. Well, let's also take a moment to appreciate the pretty foil forest. We're also just going to hope this comes back to us, but we're not going to cross our fingers for it. The Returned Centaur also plays pretty well with our deck since we're trying to load up the graveyard, and that is something worth keeping our eye upon. Send to Sleep, once again, like we discussed earlier, we touched on. It's okay if you can make it work in a very control-y setup, but if you're not able to get that Spell Mastery, it's straight up not worth it. If you're able to get the Spell Mastery, fair play. But we're going to go ahead and grab the Winnower. So looking into this pack, there's another copy of Disperse to return cards to their owner's hand. There's an Evolving Wilds for mana fixing. Malakir Coldblades here once again, who as creatures die, he gets bigger, which is a thing we're going to try to do. But as we don't have a lot of kill spells yet, I think what we're just going to go ahead and grab here is Read the Bones. Scrying 2, then drawing 2 cards and losing 2 life will help us get the cards we need early, will help us much in the late game, and it's just a really solid 3-drop. We should also start prioritizing creatures here as we have the chance, and we did mention earlier we were wanting to do the Undead Servant deck, and seeing nothing, I don't know, Tower Geist is a really good card. And it will not wheel, whereas the Undead Servant might. I'm going to grab the Tower Geist here. It's difficult to block, it gives us card advantage, and it's an uncommon. We won't see it again. So here's Harbinger of the Tides, which, while we're on our bounce, return, annoy plan, this one comes down as a 2-drop to return target tapped creature to its owner's hand, and we can pay 2 to basically cast it as though it had flash. There's also a Separatist Void Mage in here, which essentially does the same thing for 4 mana as the flash, but it doesn't have the flash of Harbinger. The double blue is a bit tough on our mana base, but we're going to try it anyway. Okay, so here is Possessed Scob at the uncommon slot. When it enters the battlefield, return target instant, sorcery, or creature card from your graveyard to your hand. I see it's in our colors. That's an amazing effect. It basically returns everything except for enchantments and artifacts, which so far we're not that heavy on to begin with. And basically playing this thing essentially draws us a card from our graveyard. The best card in our graveyard at that. So I see absolutely no reason not to just jam this in right now. Okay, coming up next, we said we wanted some removal if we could get it. Here it is. Not only is this an excellent target for something like our Possessed Scab, it can also return our Undead Servants if we're able to get more of those. I think this is just straight up the pick here. We're getting very expensive in our 5-drops, so we need to start prioritizing some slightly cheaper things so we can get our mitts on them. But for right now, we need to prioritize good removal, which is something you should always be prioritizing. And let's see, what else should I be looking for right now? We want to get some things that lower our mana cost a bit. And of the stuff we see here, Macabre Waltz, check that art out. Macabre Waltz is okay, but right now we don't have 2 creature cards that are fantastic. We're going to grab Returned Centaur for a 4-drop slot. Yeah, we can use it to mill ourselves, or just mill our opponent if need be, which will help load up the graveyard for our Shadows of the Past. And it will also help us get Spell Mastery for any of our spells that we end up drafting that care about that. I think it seems like a solid pick. So here we have the Great Aurora. We can't pick that up, as that there's no way we could splash that. So Calculated Dismissal, which we could use to straight counter an opponent's spell unless they pay 3. It is a 3-drop, which we're a bit light on. We could just straight up take a negate here to counter target non-creature spell, 2 mana. I'm going to go with kind of the general purpose one here. Having Spell Mastery shouldn't be tremendously difficult with all the self-mill we're going to be doing. There's another Returned Centaur here, but again, we need a little more in the early game, and Deadbridge Shaman trades aggressively and forces our opponent to discard when it dies, which means they might go out of their way to not immediately kill it. So of the stuff we see here, I'm not terribly impressed with any of it, but for the stuff I want to face the least, I'm going to go ahead and just cut the Titan Strength. So we get back here, and I'm pretty sure this was the pack that originally had the other Undead Servant in it, so I suppose somebody else is also hoarding those. We'll grab the Artificer's Epiphany, even though I still don't see us playing one of those. And here, I guess I'll grab... I'm unenthusiastic about grabbing either of these, but I guess I'll pick up the Slug. So in this pack, we can grab the Combat Trick that's not terribly great, or the rare that is completely unplayable and limited. We're going to go ahead and pick up the Touch of Moonglove and not be happy about it. So that wraps up this pack, and we're close to a good deck. It's very top-heavy, but it's got a plan, he says, with a question mark on the end of his own sentence. Okay, so here we have the Orbs of Warding as our rare, which gives us hexproof, and if a creature would deal damage to us, prevent 1 of that damage. Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you guys, I don't see a world where we're using that. Well, this pack is awful for our colors. Thornbow Archer is far too It doesn't do very much, even at the beginning of the game and not in the late game. It's good in an elf deck if you have a lot to capitalize on that, but as you've noticed, we don't. I think the best pick for us in this pack, to be in green right now. There's good stuff here in Wild Instincts, which is fantastic. And Fiery Conclusion isn't bad either. It's worth a pickup. So I guess we're just going to grab the Evolving Wilds here, which given how many double blacks and double blues we have, I think we can get away with. In this pack, still not a lot of black. We could grab a second Read the Bones, which is really good. There's also a Scab Goliath, which as an additional cost to cast him, we have to exile 2 creature cards from our graveyard, which if we pick up a bunch of creatures, this pack shouldn't be terribly difficult to do. And he has a huge body and trample, so why not? Let's see what happens. So our rare here is Soulblade Jin, which has flying, and whenever we cast a non-creature spell, it basically gives all our creatures prowess, +1/+1, till end of turn. It's another 5-drop in an already very top-heavy deck, though. But let's see what else what would we do if we did not pick that up. There's another Towergeist, which once again draws us cards and then lets us discard cards. Night Snare. Oh, there's another Undead Servant, too. At this point, I'm seeing myself not doing the Undead Servant plan, possibly cutting one of them, and instead taking the Towergeist here. On the other hand, this is tough. No, I'm gonna pick up the Servant and run them both. We're just gonna take our chances. So, Eyeblight Assassin here comes in as possible removal. Nantuko Husk is solid as well with the 2-drop slot. Psychic Rebuttal. I don't even know what that does. It's something that targets me. I think that's a little too narrow for limited. I'm going to go ahead and grab the Eyeblight Assassin here as a way to as a 3-drop that has a 2/2 body and gives something -1/-1. Read, great way to kill Thopters or small elves or other early game threats. We could pick up another Separatist Void Mage here. Possibly take the Negate. I don't want a second one of these. I'll be honest, I didn't want my first. And Night Snare, we already have one of those too that I'm also probably not going to end up running. There's a part of me that just wants to cut the Consul's Lieutenant because this thing is obnoxious as everything. And our 4-drop slot's so heavy. Did I already grab a Negate? No, I have not picked up a Negate yet. No. I'm going to go ahead and grab the creature. I'd almost always rather have a creature than not have a creature. So another mythic floating around is Alhammarret's Archive. If you would gain life, gain twice that much instead. And if you would draw a card, except for the first one that you draw on each of your draw step, draw 2 cards instead. So, Jace draws us cards. Towergeist looks at the top 2. Okay, that doesn't draw. I thought it drew. Yeah, no, that would be a little too cute. But then what do we do instead here? We could get Clash of Wills or another Calculated Dismissal. Let's try the Clash of Wills. Is there some other draw card that I'm missing here that I'm going to feel real stupid about in a minute? I don't think so. So there's another Calculated Dismissal. I've seen Dark Dabbling do some really good work, and it also, if all else fails, it kind of just cantrips to draw us a card. We have 16 creatures, though. Unfortunately, at least 3 of them really aren't that good, so there's a part of me that, since we're doing the self-mill plan, just wants to pick up this 2-drop Screeching Scab here. Shambling Ghoul has a bit more resiliency, however. It's a tough pick. I'm going to take the Ghoul. If nothing else, it also gives us another possible zombie for our Cruel Revival. Which, isn't something, if we don't get a zombie back, that's fine. We still play it to destroy our opponent's creature, but it's nice to get an additional reward whenever we can swing it. Waiting on one other player here. They pass this over to us. So a Scrapskin Drake, which as we discussed is pretty good, and a surprisingly late Aspiring Aeronaut, which, given that card's pretty okay, I'm kind of surprised to see it this late. However, it's yet another 4-drop in an already very top-heavy deck, so I'm going to go ahead and grab the Drake. Here, we're back to our first pack, and I don't know, I guess I'm going to grab for a sideboard the Macabre Waltz, or maybe Send to Sleep. I've got a decent number of non-creatures in here and a lot of ways to get them into the yard, so let's pick one of those up. A really late Read the Bones, which we'll pick up here. Take Chandra's Fury, I guess, because I don't want someone to use it on me. An entirely blue pack with stuff that we could actually use. I'll take the Maritime Guard as a possible sideboard in case we run into a very aggressive opponent. There's that Negate that I've been waffling on taking all day. One more Macabre Waltz for the sideboard. And finally, our last basic land of the day is the Island. So, after a couple packs, we have 29 cards in our main deck right now, although one of them is Evolving Wilds. So, that effectively makes it 28, since that'll count as one of our 17 lands. I do think this is definitely a 17 land deck, which means we have to make about, let's see, what is 23 minus 28? We have to make about 5 cuts here. So let's go ahead and sort by converted mana cost, and let's go ahead and group the creatures separately from the non-creatures. I wish we had managed to wind up with a few more Undead Servants. And since we only have 2, I really can't justify running them for their stats unless I have 3, so let's throw something else in instead. We're going to go ahead and bring in the Separatist Void Mage for sure, since we are definitely kind of more on a blue-black tempo sort of setup at this point. I could, as another 2-drop, bring in the Maritime Guard, but I think since we are running 17 creatures, I honestly think that's enough. Let's see if there's any other creatures we want to cut. We want to keep Jace, Harbinger's good, Ghoul's good, Despoiler's a bit greedy, but honestly, we just kind of need it. Even if it can't block, it can force trades by attacking. Goldforge Sentinel, Scab Goliath, Possessed Scab, Glintleaf Winnower. The Rabid Bloodsucker is not great, but looking through what we have, I kind of think we need him just as something we can play later, and making each player lose 2 life, it is a thing. So down here we have stuff. Touch of the Moonglove, I'm going to go ahead and cut as sure. It'll let one of our weaker creatures, trade positively to kill an opponent's creature. But I like it when my Death Touch abilities let my creature survive. And even though I'm using this to kill one of their creatures, it's still costing the card I'm blocking with and the Touch of the Moonglove itself to kill their creature. So I'm 2 for 1ing myself. And that's just something I'm really never happy to do. The rest of the stuff in our deck, though, I'm pretty sure is going to make the cut. We have decent flyers, we have stuff with a decent ground game, with good defense. We have the Possessed Scab to get back whatever we need. We're going to go ahead and cut Night Snare down here, because, making them discard cards is all well and good, and by turn 4, sure, maybe we'll get more than we want. Maybe we'll get something good, but there's also times where we'll just clear their hand of useless stuff they couldn't use anyway, and that's just never exciting. So we're effectively now down to 25 cards, which means we have 2 more cuts to make. Calculated Dismissal with the built-in Scry seems pretty good. Clash of Wills, though, can be a bit more versatile in that however much we can make X as little or as much as we need it to, at the cost of not doing anything else that turn. Shadows of the Past we're going to keep just because that does so much work, and in the late game, it has a straight-up built-in clock to slow down our opponent. We're going to keep both the Read the Bones, as we're going to need all the help we can get drawing towards our big threats, and Disperse is really good. Meteorite, the most expensive card in our deck costs 6, and by the time we're playing Meteorite, we already have 5 mana, but it does enter the battlefield doing 2 pivotal damage, so we're going to go ahead and cut the Clash of Wills. No. Late game, we could use Clash of Wills. Between that or Calculated Dismissal, I'm more inclined to keep the Clash. Which finally means we currently have 24 cards in our deck. We have to make 1 more cut. And yeah, I guess I'm trying to talk myself out of Meteorite. I think we do want both of our Read the Bones. I wouldn't run more than 2, but I think 2 is the right number. We're definitely not cutting Cruel Revival. Let's see if there's anything up here we want to cut. Yeah, why not? Let's cut the Bloodsucker. So that puts us down to 16 creatures, 17 non-creatures. So as far as our lands go, we have 1 Evolving Wilds. We need to add our basic lands. This is proposing an 8-8 split. And looking at our mana distribution, I think that's about right. Both of them are good early. We have double blue and double black at the 2-drop slot, which is gross. But after that, the only double cost we have is the 5 and Guiltleaf Winnower. So, in all, I think it looks playable. Alright guys, I'm going to go ahead and cut the recording here. I'll start up again in round 1, and we'll see how this goes for us. This has been Lee with Untapped Potential, and I hope we don't get destroyed.